Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood at her monitoring station aboard the Earth Defense Force vessel Hyperion, her eyes fixed on an anomalous energy signature that shouldn't exist. The reading pulsed quietly in the corner of her holographic display, a subtle distortion in the quantum field that most scanners would miss. But Sarah had helped design these enhanced detection systems, and she knew this wasn't background noise. "Captain Edwards," she called out, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her gut. "I'm picking up something unusual from the Centauri Rim research sector." Captain Maya Edwards, a veteran of both the Mars conflicts and First Contact, moved to Sarah's station with practiced efficiency. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. "Talk to me, Lieutenant. What are we looking at?" "It's a quantum signature similar to our developmental enhancement programs, sir, but it's coming from the Arxos Science Institute." Sarah's fingers danced across the holographic controls, enhancing the signal. "The energy pattern matches our classified neural acceleration research." The captain's expression hardened. The Arxos were renowned throughout the galaxy for their advances in biotechnology and neural science. They were also known for their clinical detachment from what other species considered ethical boundaries. "Cross-reference the signature with our missing persons database," Edwards ordered, though her tone suggested she already suspected what they'd find. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she pulled up the records. Over the past 3 years, 15 gifted teenagers had vanished during routine space travel. Each case had been investigated, each loss attributed to equipment failure or navigation errors. The parents had been devastated, but the evidence seemed conclusive. Until now. "Sir," Sarah's voice cracked. "The quantum patterns, they matched the neural profiles of our missing students. All of them." Captain Edwards straightened, her jaw set in a hard line. "Send everything to my secure terminal. Then get me a direct line to Admiral Hassan at Fleet Command." She paused, looking at the starfield beyond the bridge viewport. "And Sarah, lock down these findings. Classification level Omega." As the captain strode away, Sarah couldn't help but think of her own sister, who had shown early signs of advanced neural capability before choosing a different path. These kids, the youngest was only 14, had been selected for the enhancement program because they represented humanity's next evolutionary step. Their brains could process information faster, adapt to new situations more quickly, and even demonstrate limited technological integration abilities. The Arxos had been particularly interested in human neural development during recent diplomatic exchanges. They'd called it fascinating how human minds could form new neural pathways so readily, especially during adolescence. Their scientific papers on the subject had earned them prestige in the galactic community. Now Sarah understood why their research had been so precise. Hours later, the bridge crew watched in tense silence as Admiral Hassan's hologram materialized in the command center. The Admiral's weathered face showed no emotion as Captain Edwards presented their findings, but his hands gripped his desk hard enough to whiten his knuckles. "We've confirmed it, sir," Edwards concluded. "The Arxos aren't just studying human neural development. They're actively experimenting on our children. They've been taking them for years, staging accidents to cover their tracks." Hassan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was eerily calm. "The Arxos believe themselves to be the intellectual leaders of the galaxy. They think their technological superiority gives them the right to treat other species as research subjects." He leaned forward. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." "Sir," Edwards prompted. "Captain, you're familiar with Protocol Black Dawn." The color drained from Edwards' face. Protocol Black Dawn was the nuclear option of diplomatic relations, a declaration that a species had committed an act so egregious that standard diplomatic channels were suspended. "Yes, sir, but that hasn't been invoked since the Nexus War." "Then it's about time we reminded the galaxy why it exists." Hassan's expression darkened. "You have new orders, Captain. The Hyperion is to maintain position and continue monitoring. I'm activating the First Fleet. We're going to show the Arxos what happens when you mistake humanity's peaceful nature for weakness." As the hologram faded, Sarah looked again at the quantum readings. Somewhere in that research facility, 15 of humanity's brightest children were being treated like lab rats by aliens who couldn't comprehend the storm they'd brought upon themselves. The Arxos had made a fundamental mistake. They'd assumed that humanity's rapid advancement and adaptability were purely biological traits that could be studied in isolation. They failed to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their genetics or neural patterns. It was in their capacity to care, to love, to protect their own. And most importantly, to remember. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Conclave gleamed like a massive geode, its crystalline walls refracting starlight across the gathered representatives of 200 species. At its heart, High Researcher Ven Exa of the Arxos stood unwavering, their iridescent scales shifting in patterns that indicated supreme confidence. Esteemed colleagues, Ven Exa's translator conveyed in perfect galactic standard, "We have done nothing wrong. The subjects are advancing our understanding of neural plasticity at an unprecedented rate. Their contributions will benefit all species." Ambassador James Martinez of Earth felt his artificial heart skip a beat. After 30 years in diplomatic service, he'd learned to maintain composure in the face of alien logic. But this, his augmented palm crushed the ceremonial staff of office, its metal warping under pressure. "Those subjects have names," Martine said, his voice carrying through the chamber. Aisha Patel, age 16. She wanted to be a xenobiologist. Marcus Chen, age 14. Already showing promise in quantum mathematics. Sophia Rodriguez. Yes, their designations are recorded. Ven Exa interrupted, their scales flickering with what might have been irritation. "But you fail to understand the significance. Subject Rodriguez's neural adaptation rate is extraordinary. When exposed to our educational protocols, she developed the ability to process quantum calculations without technological assistance. A breakthrough that." "Show them." Martinez's command cut through the chamber like a blade. The holographic displays activated, showing surveillance footage from the Arxos facility. A girl, no more than 15, huddled in a sterile white room. Her hands shook as she solved complex equations that appeared on the walls, tears streaming down her face. When she slowed, a subtle vibration ran through the room. Negative reinforcement. Again came the clinical voice of an Arxos researcher. Faster this time. The assembly erupted in murmurs. Even species that didn't share human emotional responses could recognize suffering. "This is standard conditioning," Ven Exa protested, their scales now pulsing rapidly. "The discomfort incentivizes improved performance. We've used similar protocols on our own young for generations. And that," Martinez said quietly, "is why you will never understand what you've done." Humanity joined this conclave believing in the exchange of knowledge, in mutual growth and understanding. We shared our advances, our art, our dreams of a united galaxy. He looked around the chamber. But we also made promises to our children. Promises to protect them, to let them grow at their own pace, to preserve their right to choose their paths. A primitive attachment that holds back scientific progress, Ven Exa countered. These specimens represent the peak of human neural evolution. Their potential cannot be wasted on individual choices when. A new hologram appeared, cutting off the Arxos researcher. It showed Admiral Hassan, his fleet command insignia gleaming. "Pardon the interruption," Hassan said, his calm voice belying the steel beneath. "But I believe this charade has gone on long enough. Ambassador Martinez, you have your answer." The Arxos show no remorse, no understanding of their transgression. Ven Exa's scales shifted to a pattern indicating superiority. "Admiral, surely you recognize that any military action would be futile. Our defensive capabilities are impressive," Hassan finished. "As is your arrogance. Ambassador, initiate Protocol Black Dawn." The chamber fell silent. Many species had never seen the protocol invoked, but all knew what it meant. Martinez stepped forward, his augmented heart now beating in perfect rhythm. By the authority vested in me by the United Earth Government, I hereby declare the Arxos in violation of Galactic Conclave Charter Section 7, Paragraph 1. The protection of sentient young. All diplomatic relations are suspended. All trade agreements void. All technological exchange programs terminated. You would damage centuries of progress over 15 specimens. Then X's translator couldn't fully convey their disbelief. No, Martins replied. We would burn down the galaxy itself to save even one child. You have 24 hours to return our children, unharmed. After that, he smiled, but there was no warmth in it. After that, the galaxy will learn why humanity's first faster-than-light drive wasn't created for exploration. It was built as a weapon. The assembly descended into chaos as Martinez walked out, leaving behind a visibly shaken Venexa. The Arxos researchers' scales had shifted to a pattern never before recorded in diplomatic archives. Fear. In orbit above the assembly world, the First Fleet waited. Each ship carried crews who had volunteered the moment they heard about the kidnapped children. Parents, siblings, teachers, all ready to remind the galaxy why humanity's peaceful nature wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a choice, and the Arxos had just forced them to make a different one. Colonel Sarah Chen, no longer a lieutenant after the events aboard the Hyperion, checked her neural interface one last time as her stealth shuttle approached the Arxos research facility. The quantum signature she discovered 3 days ago now pulsed like a beacon, stronger than ever. But something about it had changed. Strike Team Alpha, final check, she subvocalized through the tactical network. 5 acknowledgement lights winked green in her augmented vision. Each member of her team had been chosen not just for their military expertise, but for their personal connection to the mission. Lieutenant Rodriguez was Sophia's older brother. Sergeant Patel had taught Aisha quantum physics before she was taken. They weren't just soldiers, they were family. Colonel, the AI tactical advisor, whispered in her mind. Anomalous quantum fluctuations detected within the target facility. The patterns don't match known Arxos technology. Sarah smiled grimly. No, they wouldn't. Status of the First Fleet. Admiral Hassan's forces are engaging Arxos defensive platforms. Preliminary reports indicate significant resistance, but the fleet's new quantum disruptors are proving effective. The Arxos appear surprised. Of course they were. The weapons were based on classified research from Earth's enhancement program, the same program that had identified these teenagers' potential. The Arxos thought they were studying humanity's next evolutionary step. They never considered they might be helping create their own downfall. The shuttle's stealth systems engaged fully as they made their final approach. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the research facility, a massive structure of crystalline spires and geometric perfection, reflecting the light of nearby stars. Beautiful, in its way, like a spider's web. Team, prepare for quantum insertion, Sarah ordered. The new teleportation technology was experimental, but it was their best chance at bypassing the facility's formidable defenses. Remember, primary objective is recovery of all 15 subjects. Secondary objective is data retrieval. No Arxos casualties unless absolutely necessary. Colonel, her eye interrupted. I'm detecting. Wait, that's impossible. Sarah's neural interface suddenly lit up with new information. The quantum signatures from within the facility weren't just fluctuating. They were communicating. Patterns of energy that mirrored human brainwave activity, but at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. They're linked, she breathed. The kids, they've learned to use the Arxos neural enhancement technology to connect with each other. A new signal cut through their encrypted channel. A voice, young but strong, echoed in their minds. Colonel Chen. This is Sophia Rodriguez. We've been waiting for you. Sarah's team exchanged shocked looks. This wasn't in any of their scenarios. Sophia, how are you? The Arxos wanted to understand how human minds adapt. Sophia's mental voice was tinged with what might have been amusement. So they gave us the tools to learn, to grow, to connect. They just didn't realize what that meant. Through her neural interface, Sarah watched in amazement as security systems throughout the facility began to shut down. Doors opened. Containment fields flickered and died. "The others are with me," Sophia continued. "We've been practicing, preparing. The Arxos think their neural enhancement technology lets them control us. They never considered that we might learn to control it instead." Sarah's tactical display updated with a complete layout of the facility, security patrol routes, and the location of all 15 teenagers. Information that would have taken hours to gather was simply there. "We can help you get to us," Sophia explained, "but you need to hurry. The Arxos are starting to realize something's wrong. And some of us are scared of what we've become, of what we can do now." Sarah made a quick decision. "New plan, team. We're not just here to rescue them. We're here to help them. These kids have been through something we can't fully understand, but they're still our children. Still human. More than human," her eye corrected. "If these readings are accurate, their neural capabilities now exceed our most optimistic projections for human evolution by several centuries." "Colonel," Sophia's mental voice held a trace of fear now. "We can feel the battle in orbit. Feel the quantum disruptions tearing through Arxos technology. That was based on studying us, wasn't it?" "Yes," Sarah admitted. "But we never meant. We know, and we think we can help end this, without more violence. But we need you to trust us, all of us, even though we're different now." Sarah thought of her sister again, of the potential she'd shown before choosing her own path. These children had been given no choice, but they'd done something extraordinary. They'd turned their captivity into transformation. "Strike Team Alpha, new objective," Sarah announced. "We're going to get our kids back, and then we're going to let them show the galaxy what humanity's next generation can really do." As her team prepared for insertion, Sarah received one last message from Sophia. "Colonel, thank you for not forgetting us, for coming for us, for still seeing us as human." "You are human," Sarah replied firmly. "You're just showing us what that really means." The quantum insertion sequence began, and Sarah's world dissolved into possibility. Above them, the battle rage. But here, in this moment, something else was about to begin. The Arxos had wanted to understand human potential. They were about to experience it firsthand. High researcher Venexa stood in their primary control chamber, iridescent scales now pulsing with rapid patterns of distress. The battle above was proceeding in ways their predictive models had never anticipated. Human quantum disruptors were tearing through defenses that had taken centuries to perfect. But that wasn't what truly disturbed them. It was the silence. Every monitoring system in the research facility had gone dark. Every neural link to their test subjects had disappeared. The greatest scientific achievement in Arxos history was slipping through their fingers, and for the first time in their long life, Venexa felt something akin to fear. Security teams report multiple breaches. Their assistant reported scales showing confusion. But our internal sensors detect no human life signs. No movement. Nothing. "Impossible," Venexa's translator conveyed. "Check the quantum containment fields. The subjects must not." The chamber's crystalline walls suddenly hummed with energy. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential. And then, in the center of the room, reality shifted. They appeared like ghosts at first, 15 human teenagers, standing in a perfect circle. But they weren't physically there. Their forms shimmered with quantum energy, neural patterns made visible through sheer force of will. And at their center stood Colonel Sarah Chen and her strike team, weapons lowered but ready. Fascinating. Venexa couldn't help but observe, scientific curiosity overwhelming even their fear. "You've achieved quantum consciousness projection. The neural enhancement protocols were more successful than we." "Stop." The command came from Sofia Rodriguez, her quantum projection stepping forward. "Stop treating us like experiments, like specimens, like things to be studied. We're people, children, and you hurt us. We advanced you, Venexo protested. Enhanced you. Your neural capabilities now exceed. We know what you did to us. Marcus Chen interrupted, his young face hard. We can see it all now. Every test, every protocol. Every time you pushed us past our breaking points because you wanted to see what would happen. And we learned things you never intended. Aisha Patel added, her quantum form flickering with contained power. About ourselves. About you. About the very nature of consciousness itself. Venx's scales shifted to show growing alarm as their instruments registered the incredible neural activity surrounding them. These children weren't just projecting their consciousness. They were manipulating quantum fields in ways that should have been impossible. Your weapons in orbit, Sophia continued. The ones tearing apart your defenses. They're based on studying us. But you never understood the most important thing about humanity. We don't just adapt. We connect. We share. We grow together. The quantum projections began to pulse in unison, their combined consciousness filling the chamber with potential. Through their shared neural link, Colonel Chen and her team watched in awe as the teenagers demonstrated just how far they'd evolved. We could destroy you, Marcus said quietly. Your neural enhancement technology gave us that power. We could tear down every defense, every system, every piece of technology you possess. But that's not what humanity is about. Instead, Aisha stepped forward. We're going to show you what you should have asked for in the first place, understanding. Before Venexa could react, the quantum field expanded. Every Arxos in the facility suddenly staggered as their neural networks were flooded with emotions, human emotions, the fear of children torn from their families, the pain of endless tests, the loneliness of isolation, but also the strength of connection, the power of hope, the unyielding human spirit that had turned imprisonment into transcendence. This is what you wanted to study. Sophia's voice was gentle now. This is what makes us human, not our neural plasticity, not our adaptation rate. This, our ability to feel, to forgive, to choose a better way. Venexe fell to their knees, scales shifting through patterns never before seen in their species, as they experienced true empathy for the first time in their ancient civilization's history. We'll share our knowledge, Marcus offered, properly, ethically, because that's what humanity does. We grow, and we help others grow with us. But first, Colonel Chen stepped forward, her voice firm. You're going to face justice for what you've done. And then maybe we can build something better from this, together. Above them, the battle began to slow as quantum signals reached the fleet, carrying the same message of understanding and possibility. The Arxos were experiencing something they had never thought to study. The true power of human consciousness, not as a subject of research, but as a force for change. The price of knowledge, they were learning, wasn't measured in data points and test results. It was measured in understanding, in empathy, and in the choices made when faced with the consequences of one's actions. And the children they had sought to study were now teaching them lessons they had never known they needed to learn. 5 years after the Arxos incident, the Galactic Conclave had changed. The Grand Crystalline Chamber now hosted a new addition. A quantum consciousness amplifier, designed by the very teenagers who had once been imprisoned for their abilities. It allowed species with vastly different neural structures to truly understand each other, not just communicate. Ambassador Sofia Rodriguez, at 21 now the youngest human diplomatic representative in history, stood before the assembled delegates. Her neural enhancements, once tools of imprisonment, now served as bridges between worlds. 5 years ago, we showed the galaxy something it wasn't ready to see, she began, her voice carrying naturally through the quantum field. The true potential of consciousness, of connection, of what happens when different species truly understand each other. The chamber was silent. Hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy focused on this young human who had helped reshape their understanding of consciousness itself. The Arxos sought to study human adaptation, she continued, gesturing to where several Arxos delegates sat, their scales now showing patterns of respect and attentiveness. They discovered instead that the greatest adaptations don't come from isolation and experimentation, but from connection and understanding. High Researcher Venexa, now serving their species in a very different capacity, inclined their head in acknowledgement. The Arxos had paid a heavy price for their actions, but they had also gained something invaluable. Their society, once focused solely on clinical advancement, had begun to understand the power of emotional intelligence. The enhanced generation, as some call us. Sophia smiled at her fellow former captives, seated among various diplomatic delegations, was never meant to be a scientific breakthrough. We were just kids who wanted to explore the stars. But what happened to us? It showed us something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. Marcus Chen, now heading the new Quantum Consciousness Research Institute, projected a holographic display showing neural pattern interactions between different species. We've learned that every consciousness, every way of thinking, has something to offer. The Arxos taught us how to enhance our neural capabilities. We taught them how to enhance their capacity for empathy. Together, we're discovering things neither of us could have found alone. Aisha Patel, her quantum consciousness gently touching the minds of those present, added, "The Institute now hosts students from 50 species, all learning, all growing, all connecting in ways we never thought possible. And it all started because humanity refused to abandon its children." Colonel, now General, Sarah Chen watched from her position among the Earth Defense Force delegation, pride evident in her expression. The teenagers she had helped rescue had grown into remarkable adults, turning trauma into triumph, imprisonment into innovation. But our greatest discovery, Sophia continued, wasn't about neural enhancement or quantum consciousness. It was about choice. The choice to forgive but not forget, to build rather than destroy, to turn an act of cruelty into an opportunity for growth. She gestured to the quantum amplifier, which hummed with the combined consciousness of everyone present. This technology, born from our experience, doesn't just let us communicate. It lets us understand, feel, connect. It's helping us build a galaxy where no species needs to fear another's curiosity, where knowledge is shared rather than stolen. The chamber filled with a sense of shared purpose as the quantum field rippled with emotional resonance. Species that once could barely comprehend each other's thought processes now shared in a moment of unified understanding. 5 years ago, humanity showed the galaxy its strength, not through weapons or technology, but through our capacity to adapt, to forgive, to grow. The Arxos thought they were studying the next step in human evolution. Instead, they helped catalyze the next step in galactic evolution. Sophia's quantum consciousness touched each mind in the chamber gently, sharing not words but pure understanding. This is humanity's true legacy to the galaxy, not our adaptability, not our resilience, but our ability to take even the darkest moments and transform them into light. As the session concluded, Ambassador Martinez, now serving on the Galactic Council, approached his former rescuee. "When we found you in that facility, did you ever imagine it would lead to this?" Sophia watched as delegates from dozens of species mingled, their consciousness touching and sharing through the quantum field she and her fellow survivors had helped create. "No," she admitted, "but that's the thing about humanity that the Arxos never understood. We don't just survive adversity. We transform it. We take what tried to break us and use it to make something better." Above the conclave chamber, Earth's diplomatic vessels floated alongside Arxos research ships, their crews working together to explore the new frontiers of consciousness. The galaxy had learned its lesson about underestimating humanity. But more importantly, humanity had shown that its greatest strength wasn't in its ability to fight back, but in its capacity to forge a better way forward. The legacy of 15 imprisoned teenagers had become a revolution in understanding, a testament to the human spirit's endless ability to turn darkness into light, and a reminder that the greatest discoveries come not from studying each other, but from learning to grow together.